17 minutes after 7 o'clock, deal or no deal. It's late in the day that 30% levy on South African exports to the US comes into effect tomorrow. And as things stand, it doesn't appear there have been any responses to the overtures we have made to Washington. To explain then the state of play and what happens next, I'm pleased to say the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, joins us now. As always, a pleasure to have you on the phone, on the show. Thank you for your time.
Good morning and thank you very much, Bongani.
We don't have a deal, do we, Minister?
No, we don't. We actually spoke to the US last night, both at the level of the embassy and also at the level of the US trade representative. And they indicated that even they are unable to confirm what the announcement would be. And they would encourage us to resubmit our proposal, possibly an enhanced proposal, to the United States government. It would be processed by the White House, and that's what pretty much they can advise. But at this point, they're unable to say what the final decision will be.
Here's part of the challenge, I would imagine. For months now, you've been trying to make overtures to this Trump White House. From the information your department has communicated publicly, we've made significant offers to the Trump administration, and it doesn't appear that there's very much we could have offered. And for months, they haven't been responding to much of what you've said. I think we heard from the agriculture minister, who's part, of course, of the interministerial committee, that they weren't responding. Is there anything you can still say, really, to sway them?
Well, it's something that we're in discussion about with the various departments. Of course, part of the offers that they require would be in relation to agriculture, as an example. And there are difficulties that we're going to have to confront, because they're saying, look, we can't at this point say at the 11th hour, you can still negotiate. You have to just give us an offer that we will consider, and that's the basis on which we'll make a decision, look at the issues that have been in dispute and say how you resolve those. Now, let me make an example. Our colleagues in the agriculture department have said, look, there's a difficulty in importing pork shoulder from the US without the removal of the lymph node because of disease-related matters and a history of the spread of disease in our country as a result of the lymph nodes in the US pork. Now, we can't just unilaterally say to the colleagues in agriculture, that notwithstanding, we're going to import the pork. So we now have to look at, are there ways in which you can resolve the problem? Is there a mechanism through which you can possibly make a decision around pork that would be palatable to the US without compromising South Africa? And I can say last night in discussions, part of the issue was, but if you say, bring the pork to South Africa and we will deal with the problem, you're exporting the risk. So there are those difficulties, but we're having to navigate a last-minute proposal that's enhanced from the proposal that we had initially given. And to tell the truth, it's wait and see. And we are in the same boat as many other countries. I'm in discussion with colleagues in many other countries that are pretty much saying we're on the same boat.
Minister, that granularity notwithstanding, is this ultimately a trade issue? I mean, I don't think it should take, hitting brick walls or being stonewalled to deal with the kind of detail you've just given us. But aren't we ultimately thinking of this as a trade issue when, in fact, it's very political? I mean, as late as this week, the US president says he's got really serious problems with South Africa. He possibly will not be coming to the G20 that we are going to be hosting. We know the US position on our ICJ case, the disinformation campaign about what happens in South Africa around BEE and transformation. All of those are really, if you will, the political strikes against us. This was never really a trade issue, was it?
Well, it has been a bit of both, I think. If you think about the trade environment, the situation is not just impacting South Africa, and it's certainly not impacting countries that have had disputes with the US around geopolitics. We are part of many countries that are facing the same situation. On the other issues, I can confirm that Minister Lamola has been in the US he was in Washington and continued to engage on the matters that are geopolitical in nature, whilst we have been engaging on the trade issues, and we've taken a view that we need to run a parallel process in an intensive way so that we're able to resolve those issues. So the reality is, yes, there are issues that the US has continued to raise with us. And yes, we have committed to engage with them. As I said, Minister Lamula was there this week. But we also have to deal with the reality that on the trade issues, we part of many that are dealing with similar situations. And I'm not naive to suggest that, in fact, those other issues might not impact on South Africa. As you would have seen, there are issues that impacted on Brazil that are outside the trade environment, and the same has been applicable to other countries. So
Precisely.
we're not naive to that possibility, and that's why we're working all out to ensure that we're able to address it on both sides.
Precisely. I know this isn't specifically your ambit, Minister, but could we have managed this better, particularly after the expulsion of our former ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool? We know, of course, our special envoy, who was meant to be working behind the scenes, wasn't palatable to this White House. And even at this late stage, we've not reversed that decision or even disavowed him or admitted that perhaps Mcebisi Jonas, for all his credentials that are clear to us as South Africans, wasn't the best choice for the Americans.
Well, as I said, part of the issues have been dealt with by Minister Lamola. My opinion is that we have pulled out all stops, including sending delegations from ministries, including sending officials into the US government. We've engaged through business, through civil society. Our colleagues in COSATU were there in the past week. There have been various business delegations. So from all angles, we have continued to engage with the US. So I don't think that we can limit it to the issues around the special envoy. And he has also been doing some significant work in the US in different platforms because that responsibility has not necessarily been changed in terms of the work that he's supposed to do.
We might argue that we may have friends in Washington, Minister, but perhaps our friends are no longer in power and have much influence. Let's move on to the what now. There is this idea that perhaps it's time now to pivot and consider other markets. And the counter argument, of course, to that is, well, it's not as if business has been ignoring potential markets simply because the US was available. We've got to think around the cost to access to those markets and whether or not you can replace the buying power of the American consumer. And I put it to you, that's not such an easy thing to do, certainly not in the short term.
It certainly isn't an easy thing to do. Talking about markets, you're also talking about relationships with buyers on the other side, appetite to engage with your product. Some of the agreements that we've had are historic and we've had to reactivate them. But it's a reality that we have to confront. So we are in a situation where we've had to plan for different scenarios. And in the worst case scenario, pivoting to alternative markets is part of the options that we've been working on. We have reached out to various other countries that have different agreements with South Africa, and we've literally had to bring it down to industry level and firm level implications and say, what can we do in the event that your product is unable to access the US market? We have established an export support desk that would be opened by tomorrow. And we've been collating information across the board, including, as I said, firm level implications, so that we're able to provide the support. We're also looking at a package of support mechanisms from government. We've been packaging it and should be engaging with National Treasury. We've been in constant contact with them on the process of developing a support package to support South African investors. It's very difficult to finalize the package until you know what the implications are, because there are industries that might still be able to access the market even with a, let's say, 15 or 20% tariff increase, and there are industries or companies that simply would not be able to access the market, and we might have to bring in a tariff support mechanism. Minister, and all that is subject to what the final announcement is. so that
Sure.
we're able to package per industry, per sector, what the implications are and what sort of support we can provide.
Did we wake up to the reality that the Americans won't budge too late? Could we not have had parallel processes that put in play what happens if they don't as we negotiate with them or try to make them offers?
Well, I don't think so. I think that part of the reality is until you know what you're dealing with, it is very difficult to put a package of support mechanisms together. So we, as I said, are engaging with different sectors.
But surely you need a contingency.
Export councils, and they've also been in touch with their counterparts in different countries with regards to what can happen. So it has been an extremely difficult situation, admittedly, and we've had to work parallel to the process of negotiating with the US. What do we do about alternative markets? And even that on its own is not an easy issue. I mean, we've been having delegations of many other countries that are coming here and saying, can you open the market for these sort of products that we might not be able to sell to the US? And we've had to say to them, well, on the basis of an agreement we have with you, can you open this market for us, or can you expand these areas of access and opportunity into your markets? And, part of the reality is that we also governed by rules of the World Trade Organization. So if you create a tariff structure for one country under the system of most favored nations, you should be able to apply the same rule to other countries. So we have to carefully manage what, in fact, we are offering other countries and what they are offering us. And we've had these discussions with many other countries, and it's been continued.
All right, Minister, appreciate your time. I know you probably need some rest in the next few days once we know what the future looks like. Appreciate your time talking to us. Minister Park Stow, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.